Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today we have a 2020 election prediction between Senator Elizabeth Warren from the state of Massachusetts, well, she was elected there, born in the state of Oklahoma, versus, of course, President Donald Trump. So, when I refer to her coming from the Northeast, I mean she is a senator from Massachusetts. It doesn't matter where she was born. A lot of people referred to Barack Obama as from Illinois because he was a senator there. That is where the majority of her voting base did come from. She didn't win an election in Oklahoma. She went to Massachusetts, and she is a senator there. Okay, now we moved on. Looking at this election prediction, this is one that kind of could have happened in 2016. There was a lot of speculation between Elizabeth Warren running, and Hillary Clinton probably would have objected to that, and she probably would have still won the primary against Warren, mainly because if Warren and Sanders had won, they would have been splitting the exact same voting group that would have elected them. So I still think that Hillary probably would have won the Democratic primary in 2016. When it comes down to 2020, she has a real shot. Elizabeth Warren, by the way, not Hillary Clinton. Elizabeth Warren has a real shot at the Democratic primary only because of the fact that she is a top political figure amongst Democrats. If Bernie Sanders does not run, she should easily sweep the primary, mainly because she is known. But also, she has a lot of flaws, too. A lot of people see her as this new woman-type candidate. Well, you tried that in 2016. Yes, Elizabeth Warren isn't as scandal-plagued as Hillary Clinton, but still, Hillary Clinton was still that woman candidate. Okay, when the Democratic Party expands on women voters, it comes down to whether or not these women actually are going to come out and vote. Yes, there is always a gender gap between Democratic and Republican Party voters amongst men and women. Typically, men do better with the Republican Party, women do better with the Democrats. But regardless, if the Democratic Party is not able to win women by the same margin as men, well, the same margin as the Republican Party wins the men voters, well, it's probably not going to help them. Mainly because typically, when it comes down to it, there's about an even amount of male and female voters. And typically in the swing states, most men voters are voting for the Republican Party. And the Democratic Party really needs to counteract that, especially with women voters. If they're putting up a woman candidate, they know Elizabeth Warren is not someone who's going to bring out African-American voters in droves just the same way Obama could. She's not going to flip Georgia. She's not going to flip Arizona. A number of these states are going to remain in Republican identity. As I'm talking about this, I'm going to start filling in the states that I already see going for the president. I don't know why. Those states wanted to go blue, but they did. But regardless, we already know that Elizabeth Warren's probably not flipping a number of these states. A number of these states are going to stay similar to how they voted in 2016 for obvious reasons. A number of these races are always going to be the same political party, regardless of who's running, unless it's maybe a one-state flip. Let's say Charlie Baker runs from Massachusetts, maybe Massachusetts could go red. And that's maybe. Still in presidential elections, Massachusetts typically holds on to its Democratic identity. But regardless, when we're looking at a map like this, there's always the same states that are going to be swing states. A lot of people have commented, why are all your videos the same? Again, ask the American electorate. That's not my, fault. I'm not going to make states like Kansas or Nebraska or South Dakota toss-up states just so the map looks a little bit different, because that's not realistic. When it comes down to it, a number of these states are going to remain with the same political party for probably the next couple decades until something crazy happens again. I just read an article because I was doing my AP Government summer work, but it was saying how there's always a political realignment every couple years. Not every couple years, but every couple decades. Okay, and after the Great Depression, and then that was the last time they made an example of it. But then I was like, around that same time, if you add the same amount of time, it was like 28, 32 years, depending on the presidential election year. I was like, okay, Kennedy happened. And then the switch of the Democratic and Republican parties, voting groups down in the South to the Northeast. And then all of a sudden, a lot changed. And then Obama happened. And then, again, political realignment happens very short, but it also has very lasting effects, okay? There was not that much time in between the Democratic Party losing voters and the Republican Party gaining the same voters that left the Democratic Party, and the number of voters who left the Republican Party to go to the Democrats. But that's why the voting groups have pretty much switched. Actually, if you watch the 2020 election based off voting history in each state, the entire South is blue. Most of the Northeast is red. Okay, the West Coast is mainly red. The Midwest is mainly red, except for a couple states. So still, when it came down to it, the Democratic Party still showing their history in the South. Even though they're not winning there now, there could be a time where the Democrats switch and win in the South. And it's probably going to come up in my lifetime, considering I'm not even 18 yet. It's probably in my lifetime. But again, we're not going to keep talking about this because, again, it's probably boring you guys. I get it. But we have 183 electoral votes for Elizabeth Warren, 191 for Donald Trump. There are some states that probably aren't going to flip. Ohio and Iowa probably aren't going to go to Elizabeth Warren, to be completely honest with you. Neither is North Carolina. These three states are pretty much lean red states. After the 2016 election, could be characterized as leaning Republican states, even North Carolina before the 2016 election. But still, when we're looking at the map, these states probably aren't going to flip for someone like Elizabeth Warren. And the problem with Warren is she's not able to excite voters the same way Bernie Sanders could. Okay, she has around the same enthusiasm as Hillary Clinton, and we all know what happened to Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. So Elizabeth Warren probably isn't going to bring out voters in, massive amounts like Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or even Barack Obama could. There's a reason why the Democratic Party fails to excite voters, and it's typically because of the candidates themselves. It's not the party platform. A lot of Americans do necessarily agree with what the Democratic Party stands for. If it was just based off issue voting, Hillary Clinton likely would have won the 2016 election. But a lot of people sometimes didn't like the candidate. A lot of them went against what the candidate stood for, even though they didn't necessarily support the policies. A number of people who were pro-choice probably voted not for Hillary Clinton, for Donald Trump, for Jill Stein, for Gary Johnson, because they just didn't like Hillary Clinton being the candidate for the Democratic Party. So that definitely did hurt the Democrats. That's something you can't deny. But still, when it comes down to Elizabeth Warren, should likely perform around the same margins as Elizabeth Warren. Just Donald Trump has lost a handful of voters in a number of these key swing states. But still, by the end of the day, I do expect states like Florida to remain in the Republican column, New Mexico and Colorado and Virginia to remain in the Democratic column. New Hampshire is a little bit more contested, but right now she is leading in the Democratic primary polls pretty early, very early to say the least, but she would likely carry the state of New Hampshire, just corralling a number more of progressive voters that Bernie Sanders was able to win that probably would have pushed him over the top in the state of New Hampshire if he did win the Democratic primary as a whole. Up in the state of Maine, right now, I don't know why I went to Nebraska, but Maine at large would likely go to Warren, but Trump would carry that second district. The state of Nevada, that one I see narrowly going to the president. I don't think Warren is able to excite Latino voters. Again, even though Donald Trump has lost a number of voters, Elizabeth Warren likely isn't to gain that many. And also when it comes out to the state of Nevada, her appeal to Nevada voters probably isn't as good as Hillary Clinton, which seems a little crazy, but Hillary Clinton also was that known figure nationwide. Elizabeth Warren is known for being that progressive liberal voice that you see from the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton was First Lady. She ran for Senate in 2000, was a senator. Then she became Secretary of State, then the Democratic nominee in 2016. So a number of things America knew about her. Over in Nevada, I don't think they'll see Warren as someone who could actually push their policies through what the majority of voters there want. And also, Hillary Clinton only narrowly won this state. Donald Trump was actually polling ahead in the state. This was one of the states that was actually wrong, according to opinion polls that showed Donald Trump winning here, even though Hillary Clinton was able to win. But going through the map, Minnesota would likely remain in the Democratic column very narrowly. When it comes down to the states that Donald Trump won the least amount by, the state of Michigan right now his approval rating is a net 8%, which also is not good. It's also net 13% in the state of Wisconsin, but net 5% in Pennsylvania. So clearly it's better in Pennsylvania at this point in time than the state of Wisconsin, and also better in Michigan than the state of Wisconsin. But right now, I'm not fully comfortable enough flipping the state of Wisconsin to the Democratic column, which is why I'm going to push Trump over the top, mainly because he was able to win here by the largest margin out of all the states in terms of percentage points. And also when it comes down to it, Donald Trump is typically underestimated in the state of Wisconsin. In 2016, this was the only state that was outside of the margin of error that was showing a Hillary Clinton victory that Donald Trump won in. She was within the margin of error of victory in the state of Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in a number of other states. Actually, no, not in a number of other states. Those were the only two states where she was actually winning inside the margin of error. Nevada showed Trump winning in the margin of error, and then Wisconsin was the only one outside the margin of error. So that gives Trump 276 electoral votes, and also his approval rating isn't too bad in the state of Pennsylvania compared to where it was a couple months ago. Clearly, Trump has expanded his approval, but that doesn't mean he's gaining voters. He's just holding on to the same base that likely would have lost him. Whoa, I think that was either a voice crack or went down or whatever. But Pennsylvania, he lost a number of voters before. Back in December, January, it was under 40% approval in the state of Pennsylvania. Now it's pretty high compared to where it was before. So he's gaining his voters back, but he's not gaining any independent or Democratic voters that you might expect, especially when we're going into a 2020 election year. The Democratic Party, if they put up a good candidate like Biden or Sanders, you could expect these states that are red now to go blue. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.